Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you. There you go. Um, I hope and pray that we'll have your attention to this very, very important topic that is really needed in our community. A bit about myself. My name is Zainab Adam. I've been with the community for more than 20 years. And Alhamdulillah, I'm one of the board of trustees at Falah Center. Tonight, we will be talking about the right to protest and the Constitution. One of the fundamental pillars of our democracy, which is the right to protest, is rooted in the First Amendment of our Constitution, which guarantees freedoms concerning religion. To talk further about this, we have a list of great speakers tonight, including our former president of Falah Center, Brother Omar Mohammedi. The list of speakers will be introduced to you by Brother Omar Abuattieh. Brother Omar Abuattieh is in his 5th year at Rutgers University, where he is pursuing a doctorate in pharmacy, mashallah. Brother Omar is passionate about civic engagement, particularly surrounding youth involvement, while holding many roles of leadership at Rutgers, like on the pharmacy side and Chancellor Advisory Council on Muslim, Arab and Palestinian campus life on campus. Omar is also an elected county committeeman in his hometown, Homedale, New Jersey. Without further ado, please, I welcome Brother Omar Attieh.
Thank you guys for coming. Again, this is a very, very important topic. Inshallah, today we're going to be talking about the First Amendment. And we have a great panel of speakers like you just heard. So it's my honor to introduce this panel of speakers. And the first one that I'll introduce is someone that I've known since I've been a little kid. It's Sami Shaban. And he's going to be talking about civic engagement, its importance, looking at universities in Palestine, you know, where we are, where we've been, where we're going, inshallah. So Sami is a Palestinian American who has lost 35 members of his family since October 7th. Sami is an attorney, former hedge fund manager, small business restaurant owner, and board member at SILRU, which is the chaplaincy at Rutgers University, serving 6,000 students, which was actually recently just attacked in a bias incident. Recently, Sami has been involved in forming the New Jersey Muslim Civic Coalition, a grouping of the largest masajid and centers in New Jersey, as well as the New Jersey Muslim Civic Coalition. That's actually a repeat, but that assisted the DSA in getting uncommitted on the ballot, which was a huge, huge victory for the state of New Jersey. Sami serves on the Board of Education in Franklin, Somerset County, and Hunterdon County, as well as the planning boards for both Franklin Township and Somerset County. Sami earned his bachelor's degree from Rutgers and his JD from Seton Hall University School of Law, and his master's from John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. Our next speaker is Omar Mohammedi. You heard a little bit about him previously. He'll be talking a little bit about anti-Semitism versus anti-Zionism, the unconstitutional move by Congress to limit free speech, and the First Amendment versus anti-discrimination. Omar Mohammedi has litigated cases of national prominence and has been the lawyer in major court opinions in the field of civil rights, such as profiling, employment, housing, and airline discrimination, and against bullying students in public schools. Mr. Mohammedi has successfully represented clients in high-profile cases such as Amadou Diallo case in New York City, or against New York City, and the 6 Imams case. His firm represents various religious organizations under 501c3. Brother Omar has served as adjunct faculty at Fordham Law School. Mr. Mohammedi is a former New York City Commissioner on Human Rights. Brother Omar was the driving force behind the recognition of Eid holidays in New York City and the repeal of the U.S. Patriot Act. He fought and was successful in disbanding the discriminatory stop and frisk in New York following the Amadou Diallo case he handled. His case on the 6 Imams case established the right of Muslims to have a place of worship in every U.S. airport and defeated in court the Congress bill, which was signed by President Bush. As you know, Brother Omar is a founder of Falah Center. He led the lawsuit against the Bridgewater Township, resulting in a resounding success. Hence, the center where we are now is the result. Brother Omar has received multiple awards for his decades of dedication and outstanding contributions as a lawyer, a commissioner, which he was rewarded with the highest respect and esteem in the legal community. Brother Omar is the president of the Association of Muslim American Lawyers and is the former president of Falah Center. He is now a board member of the New Jersey Muslim Civic Coalition. I apologize, the network didn't let me download this last one, but it's very important. Okay. Okay. And last but not least, we have Fatima Mughal, who is a Pakistani American Muslim socialist, abolitionist, teacher, and organizer. She has done work in tenants' rights, immigration justice, and mutual aid, and volunteers with many different community groups, including the Democratic Socialists of America. She is currently working with organizers across New Jersey on the Uncommitted campaign. So inshallah, give it up for our speakers for tonight's program. Inshallah, we learn a lot.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyid Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. It's actually regretful that I have to correct one of the things that my wonderful young leader, Omar, mentioned. I now have 37 members of my family that were killed. Yesterday I got notice that 2 more family members had been killed. My eldest cousin and his wife took their shahada in Gaza. So, alhamdulillah. So much of what I do roots back to those, those times and those places. When I was a very young child, I was probably about 10 years old, I remember crossing the border. This is back when you could cross the border between Israel and what was Palestine. And at that border, I remember being in a bus full of people, and everybody went right through, except for my father and myself. And they pulled us to the side, and everybody else was, of course, not like us. They were whiter and more Jewish. They made me take off all my clothes. So now you're 10 years old, and they took a metal detector, like those wands, and they pressed that cold wand against my skin as if there was something inside of me that they were looking for. I was already naked. There's nothing to see. There's nothing underneath. And of course, what was wrong with me is that I was Palestinian. My inner core was just not good, right? I just was not the right person. They then did a bunch of other things to thoroughly embarrass us. And that stuck with me. That type of treatment stuck with me. It led me down a path, that along with the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ and Islam in general, of being in service for people, of taking the stuff, the honors, the ni'mah that Allah has given us, and using it for the benefit of everybody else. If we don't do that, then I feel like we've not done what we're supposed to do. And so I've actually become thoroughly involved with a lot of different nonprofits. And I actually got to such a stage that all the nonprofits I'm working on were all Muslim ones. And I told myself, wait a second, this is just too much overload. I need to be of service to everybody. I feel like the Prophet ﷺ gave us an example where he was helping everybody. And so I started to engage with numerous boards, the planning boards that Omar mentioned, civic engagement boards, and the Board of Education in my township. One of the things that I get from doing that is the ability now to represent all those. So in my town, Franklin Township, just 2 towns over, we have 45% of our population is Title I, meaning that they need assistance just to buy lunch. 76% is Black and Hispanic. So I grew up as a poor Palestinian kid. I see myself in a lot of my constituency, and that makes me want to fight harder for them. The whole essence of why we're here is civic engagement. But civic engagement is hollow if you don't have an internal reason for doing it. You won't get very far. You won't push very hard. So when I sit there on my Board of Education, that's the thrust. So everything I do with that in mind. In fact, the lady who I got off of the Board of Education. The reason why I was mostly inspired to do that was a white middle-aged lady who had driven down on January 6th to be part of the insurrection. Can you imagine a town that's 76% black and Hispanic, and you have a white Board of Education member that is, and she actually broke her collarbone. She had to be rushed to the hospital down in Washington, D.C. That's how much in the fray she was. Just as one example, when they went to go do an equity plan, one of the parts of the equity plan said something along the lines of, this equity plan is to ensure equality for all the kids and to do away with 1, 2, 3, racism, and white supremacy. She said, I won't sign this equity plan. She said, I can't sign anything that says white supremacy. No, you're politicizing the issue. We're like, what are you talking about? How can you not sign an equity plan? So the plan passed 8-1, but these are the types of folks that are in some of these positions. We just went 2 days ago to get, in my town, a ceasefire approved. To us, it's a very simple thing. We want to stop these mass murders of people. The mayor of my town started off by saying, I am Jewish and I am a Zionist, right? And I don't believe that we have any reason to be involved with these international issues. Of course, we had mentioned all the ways that those international issues are impacting us, not the least of which is my own son in his school was getting pictures of Hitler with a Palestinian flag as the tie, and La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah as the tiny little mustache, right? These types of threatening things. So what I was happy about is at that meeting, for the first time ever, we had a room full, maybe 100 people, Muslims, all advocating, one after the other, getting up to that podium. We didn't get very far in that particular meeting, but in the long run, I feel like we really moved our community forward. Because after that meeting, I had so many people coming up to me saying, how do I do that engagement thing? Like, how do I get on one, how do I get on that council? Because we want to now represent. One of the things that I think many of us have noticed is over the past few months that our stance in this country is very clear, right? We have no say. We try to make movements, but there's nothing. The only way to really make impact is to actually get involved. And there's so many ways to get involved. You can start by getting on to like a planning board, which I'm happy to explain what that is, a board of education or a town council, or running for a mayor. Last night we had a fundraiser with the Civic Coalition for one of the first Muslims to ever run for the federal Congress, Mohammedi Khairullah. If you can support him, please support him. A lot of this, though, roots from the why. Why do we do what we do? And if you don't have a why, if you can't answer that question internally, if you're okay with the status quo, then you're probably not going to get very far. But if you really want to make an impact, I'll tell you that one of the best ways to make impact is at the local level. I'm just going to give you a few examples from my Board of Education experience. I'm the vice president for my Board of Education. In the past year, and now going forward 2 years, I'm just going to give you a few examples. Number one, since we've been on the Board of Education, my school district, Franklin School District, has always been seen as like an okay school district. We, for the first time ever, made it onto the U.S. News and World Report, Best High Schools in America. First time ever that our township has ever been there. Last year, we opened up a health center for every single one of our teachers to get free health care. Again, a way to keep them here. This year, we're opening up a health center for every single one of our students. Remember, 45% of them can't even afford lunch. So they won't be able to afford health care. We now will have a health care center. We have over 7,000 students in our district that will be able to give free health care to every single student in our district. Next year, we're going to be developing what I'm so thrilled about, but we're going to be developing a pre-K, universal pre-K school for all of our, what does that do for parents? It allows them to work and it gets the kids integrated and actually makes them, be able to get further. The last piece, which I'm even super proud of, is something that I had started in my town called FISC. It's Franklin Food Insecurity and Safety Coalition, FISC, F-I-S-C, Food Insecurity and Safety Coalition. What that coalition does, again, because we have such a strong population or a large population of people that are unable to afford a lot of their food, what this does is it allows the township to come together to solve one problem, which is food insecurity. So can you imagine having a town with no food insecurity? Well, that's what we're trying to do. And one of the outcomes of that, so who are the constituents? We got the town council, board of education, the youth center, 70 houses of worship, our state legislature, our commissioners, everyone to come together to focus on this. What makes me proud about it is that it's a Muslim, one of us, that actually helped to start it and is pushing it forward. What makes me super proud about it is that coming out of that meeting, we now are going to have our food bank, which is sort of in a really remote part of town, go into one of our, so I'm on the Board of Education, so we took one of our schools that has 6 acres of property in front of it. We're reallocating 3 acres of that to put the food bank. We're choosing a school that has 80% of those Title Is, 80% of the kids that can't really find food to eat. Now imagine you're a parent now that shows up at school, and now all of a sudden you have a food bank there right next to the school. The food bank is going to not only give you food, but it's going to train you on your jobs. And all of this is being done in partnership with the township, the Board of Education, and the schools. So now you're not just fixing a problem by giving a kid a meal, you're actually teaching all those parents how to fish and hopefully raising a generation of kids that will have that upward mobility. All of this is possible for you guys if you're so interested. But this is something that, for me, were my direct impacts. These were things that I was able to, in association with a lot of other people, push forward to get done. These are real impacts. People think that, oh, what am I going to do? And the other thing I always hear is, well, aren't I going to have to compromise some of my principles? I've never had to compromise anything. At the end of my Board of Education meetings, I'll tell people, I just lost so many people in my family in Palestine. We need to end this. Like, I'm not shy. I'm not remorseful. When I stood up in front of that township meeting yesterday or 2 days ago, I said, I am on this board, this board, this board, this board. I've given my blood, sweat, and tears to this town, and I expect that you guys will respect me, right, and honor some of these things. And of course, it's a stepping stone, but all of this to say that none of this can happen if you don't get engaged. You can't expect any change to happen if you yourself are not anywhere to be found. So my push to you all is to find those inlets and go from there. My last comment, and it relates to that poster there, Brother Omar is part of that, and actually both Brother Omars are part of this. So we have 2 things that we've started within New Jersey since October 7th. One is called the New Jersey Muslim Coalition, and one is called the Muslim Civic Coalition. Very similar names, but very different initiatives. The Muslim Coalition has brought together 67 masajid together on one platform to advocate on behalf of all the Muslims in New Jersey. And what we've done is we've written letters to our governor, to our congresspeople, to our state legislatures. As an example, just a few days ago, we sent a letter to both universities, Rutgers University and Princeton University, juxtaposing the way that they've handled the student encampments, applauding the way that Rutgers has handled it by coming to an agreement on 8 different positions, and being appalled by how Princeton has handled it. I mean, now they've fully canceled it, but the hunger strikes and so on and so forth. The governor's office is calling me, telling me, we got your letter. The Congresswoman, Bonnie Watson, their office is calling me saying, we got your letter, thank you. It's helpful to them to know that this is where the entire Muslim masjid community resides. This is the position. We've never had that. Have we ever even agreed on Eid or Ramadan? No, but we're agreeing on these things. And this is some of the light that comes out of the darkness. And the Civic Coalition is now going to take that another step forward, which is events like this, perhaps, where we get people civically engaged, register them to vote, partnering with folks like the DSA in terms of getting uncommitted. Does anybody know how impactful this uncommitted thing is? Do you know that New Jersey is the only state in America that will have on its ballot the word Palestine? Our ballot, every single ballot in New Jersey is going to have justice for Palestine, ceasefire now. Do you know how impactful it is? Could you have imagined that your ballot for president will say Palestine on it, that you will get to vote for Palestine? How amazing is that? But that was the work that we did through the Muslim Civic Coalition in partnership and the leadership of the DSA to get this done, right? Forming coalitions with people that are Muslim and people that are not Muslim but are concerned on these issues. So this is going to be the future, inshallah, of, hey, I don't know who to vote for. Hey, I don't know where to go. The C4 side of things, I don't want to get technical with the legal stuff, but we'll be able to even endorse candidates and help the community to get behind people. Why is that important? It's important because when we vote as a bloc, we then have power. The presidency is usually decided within a few percentage points. If you can prove that you are that 2 or 3% in the middle, guess who's got all the power now? Because you can then choose who the president is. Michigan, Wisconsin can choose who the president is. We can take people out of office, maybe not put them in office, but that's power. So when people ask, who do we vote for president? They both stink. It's Trump, it's Biden. My answer to that is all we need to do and focus on right now is unifying. Because if we can put 2 or 3 million votes together, that's power. You can't care about this current election. Does it even matter? Okay, Trump wins, Biden wins. Is there a huge difference? I don't think there's a huge difference. But what you will get, potentially, is the ability to bring our community together. We're not here, we're 501c3, we're not here to advocate for one or the other. What we're here to do, or at least my thrust is, to unify our community. So I guess we'll leave questions for later, but jazakallah khair wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I guess it's me, right? Yeah. All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Too tall for me. I just gave it time right to get him. Anyway, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa salatu wa-salam ala ashraf al-Mursaleen, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. My topic is a little difficult to even express myself, considering what our brothers and sisters in Palestine are going through, what brothers and sisters and also students are going through here in the United States of America, land of freedom. And today, I was just listening very quickly. Someone said something about Trump. And I just could not believe people who are actually indicted for being criminals running for office in this country. That tells you a lot where we are now. And not only that, but they are accusing others who are speaking against genocide that they are either liberals or they are terrorists, right? And we need to deport them, right? So he thinks Americans should be deported just because they have to speak against tyranny. He is a tyranny himself. Really, he is a tyranny himself, and many others. You know that our First Amendment right allows us to speak and to protest against occupation, oppression, stealing land, committing genocide and ethnic cleansing by brutal Zionist regime. Simple, right? And we know that Israel is not waging a war against Hamas. It is exterminating a Palestinian identity, and it's done on purpose. It has been doing this for 75 years, it's still doing it, right? But our dissent is about human rights, humanitarian law, international law, that Israel has been violating with a blessing from the US. It's clearly. A Canadian journalist, Naomi Klein, says, Zionism is a false idol taking the idea of a false claim to the idea of promised land and turn it into a deed of sale for militaristic state ethnostate. And an ethno-state, it's clearly that's what Israel is doing. The Jews are horrified, that's what he said. The Jews are horrified what Israel is doing to their religion, and is used a license to kill by Zionists. There's a Jewish man saying that. This movement of Zionism is at all levels. It's corrupting our system for decades, corrupting the political process, the economic process, and the mind with lies and inhuman approach to destruction. And it's manipulating to rob Palestinians of their land. So let me ask you a few questions, and we can all answer them. How can we imagine senators writing to the International Court of Justice, threatening it for issuing an arrest warrant against Netanyahu? Could you imagine someone here threatening a judge in the US legal system? He would be in prison, right? Is this normal? Is there any justification of killing 40,000 people, most of them children, and destroying a whole nation? And we are okay with it? Is this normal? How is the crime, the killing of 40,000 people, most of them children, is anti-Semitism? Is this normal? Israel is committing a heinous crime, then the House passes a fabricated anti-Semitism legislation for speaking out against it. Is this normal? How can a senator say, nuke Gaza? Is this normal? How can public officials, law enforcement, and universities ignore the killing and starvation of Palestinian population without any remorse, then turn themselves into monsters with the Zionists using violence against peaceful student protesters, also the professors, profiling them, expelling them for expressing their First Amendment right? Is this normal? Are we dreaming? How could companies and law firms, judges themselves, refuse to hire peaceful protesters and dismissing their existence, and those people that are being dismissed for speaking out? Is this normal? This is the new normal? Is this the old normal? Or this has always been normal for Zionists, but now it's wide in the open, right? Lately, I was watching the Hunger Games series. I truly felt I was watching the current events. Think about this. Go back and watch it again, and you see what I'm talking about. Now, legislators are trying to pass laws to suppress dissent on behalf of foreign nations committing genocide. The weaponized false narrative of anti-Semitism is wrong and deceptive for many reasons, and I'm going to give you some. And I'm trying to be as simple as I can, because the law, obviously, on this matters are very complicated. But they know because it's complicated, they're trying to, it's like drugging the whole nation. It's unbelievable. First, protesting against Israel committing genocide against Palestinians is not anti-Semitism, but a right under the Constitution. It is also telling the truth about the reality on the ground, right? You know, the Arab Palestinians, the Arabs, are Semite, right? They're being exterminated through inhumane and despicable war machine and hunger. Enacting legislation against protests is not only anti-Semitism, but it is fascism, right? Also, the legislation fosters Islamophobia, which is on the rise as we speak. Why students are asking to divest from Israel? Most of the donors in Ivy League schools are Zionist, right? They give the money, they get the tax deduction, the money goes to Israel, comes back, right? Invest, making that nation really strong and have the healthcare. By the way, our taxpayer money is giving healthcare to every Israeli citizen, where we don't have a good health system, where most of the people are bankrupt because of health system. So think about this. Who are the people who should be deported? I mean, who are those people who should be deported? Think about this. The corrupt government cannot change our constitution, for sure. It does. If it does, we have recourses before the Supreme Court and many other courts. The Constitution cannot be clearer when it stipulates Congress shall make law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or the press or the right of people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government to redress grievance. Isn't that what the students are doing? Right? First Amendment right of the Constitution passed by Congress in the 18th century on September 25, 1789, and ratified December 15, 1791. One of the 10th Amendment of the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment gives everyone residing in the United States the right to hear all sides of every issue and to make their own judgment about those issues without government interference or limitations. Everything is done is being wrong. We are violating our Constitution with impunity, and we feel so proud of it, and we call ourselves a democratic country, right? Think about this. We are running towards fascism. That is not a democratic country as we speak. And we hear some people saying, yeah, let's take them out. Let's clean up, just the way they clean up Gaza, right? And Kushner want to have condos in Gaza. They want to clean up now universities here in this country. That's what they want to do. The right to speak under the First Amendment right has been interpreted widely to protect. That's the Constitution. Individuals and society from government attempts to suppress ideas and information, to forbid government censorship. And that's exactly what they are doing. It's against everything that the Constitution believes in, right? And what we stand for. The Supreme Court reaffirmed that the right to receive information is a fundamental right protected under the U.S. Constitution. The First Amendment right, again, protects the right to exercise those freedom and advocates respect for the right to others to do the same. It's okay. You're free to say whatever you want. We're free to say whatever we want, right? But what do you see? What do you see? Zionists are victims. Yeah, they are really victims. Who is the victim here? People living in the United States have the right to resolve their differences in values and belief by resort to more speech, not enforce silence. That's the Supreme Court. I don't know if you know Jeffrey Sachs, a prominent professor at Columbia University. A few days ago, I was watching his YouTube when he had an interview with the judge. And he was talking about the critical cracking down on students. And the YouTube video was called U.S. being ruled by criminals. He spoke about the First Amendment right and the deceptive and unconstitutional proposed legislation that puts chilling effect on the First Amendment right while allowing mass murder of Palestinians. Ironically, you know what's happened? I went back to see it today. That video is gone. It doesn't even exist. Censorship? Unbelievable. Is it unbelievable? Do you believe is that a dream? Do we live in the United States of America that propagates freedom of expression, First Amendment rights? And we go and we criticize Russia, we criticize this, we do this. And we have someone like Trump. I mean, it's unbelievable. Talking about people to right to protest and saying something about them, those are criminals that we need to get rid of them. Who's the criminal? Right? I will conclude by saying genocide denial is exactly similar to Holocaust denial. It is anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. I'm sure they don't even know that Arabs are Semite too. They issue legislation anti-Semitism, right? Suppressing the First Amendment right is a tyranny and fascism. It is against our Constitution. Our public officials are serving another country committing mass murder against civilians. Now they are sacrificing our right to save a foreign nation. We should not stop speaking. and we should not stop speaking out and peacefully protesting. We should protest for a change. We need to challenge any legislation. We should protest for the change and challenge any legislation. We need to challenge legislation that attempt to stifle our right under the Constitution. We should seek court intervention against brutal suspension, dismissal for expression and for dissent, our dissent against genocide. Finally, the truth will always prevail, and Palestine will be free. It is a matter of time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Next, we'll have Fatima from DSA.
Assalamu alaikum. Sorry, just pull it up. So yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today, especially to be able to talk about the Uncommitted campaign. But first, I just wanted to reiterate what Brother Sami said earlier about the importance of local politics and how we really do have the opportunity to make an impact within our own community. How, when you come together as Muslims, come together as neighbors, come together as community, you are able to really do some amazing things, as Brother Sami has done and sort of has hopefully inspired us to do as well. But I think something for us to keep in mind is that on the national level, it feels very different, and it is very different, right? I think we are right now in a situation where we talk about the right to protest, we talk about, democracy and what that means and being able to vote for people who represent your values. And here we are, right, in 2024, and we have two options, neither of which are anywhere near any of our values. And so this election, I think, is a wake-up call to a lot of Muslims. I think a lot of people in a lot of different marginalized communities have known for a long time and have seen for a long time and have felt the impact for a very long time about how, again, especially on the national level, you have politicians that are not representing their values, that don't care about the marginalized people. And so for us, I think now it's really, really glaring because we're literally watching, our brothers and sisters in Palestine and what's being done to them in, with all of our tax dollars. And so I think, again, like I said, it's a wake-up call to a lot of people. And so I think it's really important that we use this moment to, as Brother Sami said, come together, to use it and kind of understand what our collective power is. And one way to do that is this uncommitted movement. Just to kind of give a little background in case anyone hasn't heard of it before, in Michigan we had folks in the Muslim community and other allies as well who, also were appalled by what's happening in Gaza. And so they decided that they wanted to come together. It is a swing state, and so their vote does, really, people pay attention to their vote, all politicians, but especially presidential elections. And so they decided that they would use the uncommitted option on their ballot, which is just, if you go to a primary, you can vote for the different people who are within your party. So for them, they went to it had to be, the Democratic primary, and they had their options, and then they have the uncommitted option. And what that means is I am not committed to any politician just yet, right? And so that was something that in Michigan, they just had as an option available on their ballot. They came together and said, we are going to use this not just to say that we're uncommitted, but to say that we are uncommitted for a reason, and that reason is Gaza, right? That we are going to come together. And so their goal was to get 10,000 votes, just as a way to say, the Muslim community is unified. Look, we've got 10,000 people who were willing to go to the polls. And what ended up happening, alhamdulillah, is they were able to get 100,000 votes, which really, really made such a big impact. And I don't think that it is a coincidence that literally the following day after that election was the first day that Kamala Harris went on TV and in her statement used the word ceasefire. And to be clear, it was a very watered down statement, and she followed ceasefire with the word temporary and 6 weeks and all of those things, but that word had never been said by her or Biden or anyone really, any of the top officials. And so, it was sort of an indication that they were sort of rattled, they were sort of scared by what that meant. And so what was amazing is that so many states followed in the footsteps of Michigan. We had lots of primaries that sort of started in February and have continued on. and started doing that as well, and really working together to, again, unify communities, Muslim community in particular, but also allies, right? Saying that we can come together across communities and recognize that we have shared interests. And we have all these people showing up for us as Muslims, and then it's our responsibility to show up for them as well. And so, we have these states across the country that have been working on uncommitted, and it's really different in every state, and unfortunately in New Jersey, it seems to be the most complicated of all of the states just to get it on the ballot. So the way that it works here is it's not just automatically there, it's not just signing some papers, it was quite a process. So as soon as we found out that we had the option to do this in New Jersey, we had probably about 2 weeks from start to finish to get this, done. And so first step was getting people to sign up with the Democratic Party as delegates. That would be delegates for uncommitted. And what that means is that, at the Democratic National Convention in August, you have everybody coming and they are representing their constituency. So their constituency said, for example, if a certain constituency says they wants Joe Biden as their candidate, thank you, for president, they would be representing them. For uncommitted, after Michigan, we now have 21 delegates that are going to be going to the Democratic National Convention in August and showing up and saying, I'm here as an uncommitted delegate, which means that I'm representing all of these thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that are saying that they don't choose Joe Biden because of what he is doing. And so it is one way for people to register a protest vote. One of the things, as I said, it's very complicated. So after we registered as delegates, the next thing you had to do was all delegates in each district needed to get 100 signatures. And so in total, there were 20 delegate districts. We needed 2,000 signatures in total across the state. We were able to, alhamdulillah, get 3,500 signatures, and that was within 10 days. So we had 10 days to do this, but it just worked out, again, alhamdulillah, that it was Ramadan, and so we were able to, go to the masjid. We went, in the first Jummah of Ramadan and able to, really collect a lot of signatures, and we continued on. And it was also just a really beautiful opportunity, also, again, to bring different communities together. Our coalition is not just Muslims. We have Jewish people, we have Christian people, we have people who don't follow any religion, we have people of all gender identities, all ages. It really was beautiful to see everyone coming together and coming to masjids and learning a little bit about Ramadan and the Tarawih prayer, and I think again it was communities coming together for something that they believed in so much. And so we were able to, like I said, get 3,500 signatures, which was about how much actually, it turns out in the end they gave us the numbers about how much Biden got. And think about how much time he had and his party had to prepare. We were able to do that within 10 days, which again really was amazing and really spoke to the fact that there are so many people here in New Jersey who want that option. So, when we were deciding whether or not we were going to do it, we had to keep in mind that our primary doesn't happen until June. It is one of the last ones. We are not a swing state. But New Jersey has the second largest Muslim community in the country. And so we thought, we have 300,000 Muslims that we needed to give them, and again, all of our allies, the opportunity to be able to register this protest vote. And as we went to the masjids and we were speaking to folks, one of the things we would hear right away, because we had to ask, are you a registered Democrat? In order to vote in the New Jersey primary, Democratic primary, you have to be a registered Democrat. And so when we said that, immediately, so many of them said either, I've already changed my affiliation, or I have no intention of even showing up at the polls because of what's happening. And so what the uncommitted option does is it gives you the option not just to stay home and not do anything, but to go to the polls and actually register that vote. And so there's now the opportunity, again, as Brother Sami said, to not only register, and not only vote uncommitted, but each delegates in the districts had the option to have a slogan. And so we voted and came together, and our slogan is Justice for Palestine, Permanent Ceasefire Now. And so, again, I think that's really incredible. I think that all of us and so many others deserve the opportunity to do that because we feel so unheard. We talk about the First Amendment and being able to protest. We talk about what democracy means, and yet here we are. And so I think all of the different ways that we can protest and register how we're feeling and let our elected representatives who are supposed to represent us know how angry we are with what they're doing I think that, we have to come all the way. So protesting is really important. Meeting with officials, elected officials, is important. Disrupting elected officials who want to pretend as though this isn't happening is important, right? These student encampments have been so beautiful and inspiring. To see them standing up when so many others are so afraid to do that has been amazing. And so this uncommitted option is one more way that we have as an opportunity to vote if that is, how we feel. And so, let's see, just kind of thinking again about this idea of rights and First Amendment rights and what that means. I think, again, it's important for us to really use this moment to learn from what we're seeing, right? We see the way that, looking specifically even just at the students, the way that they are treated. And I'm not sure if any of you have been able to go to any of these encampments, but I've been to many. I went to the UPenn encampment in Philadelphia. That's a combination of Temple students and UPenn students. I went to the Rutgers New Brunswick and the Rutgers Newark, and also the Princeton encampment as well, which is closest to me. So I really have spent a lot of time there. And they have created such a beautiful space of solidarity where you have free libraries and you have people bringing food and you have shared shared blankets and pillows and clothes and whatever anybody needs, they give to each other, they share with each other, the community is showing up for them. And it's just a space that I loved to be in. I mean, I'm really sad that last night was the last night of the Princeton encampment because it was a place I just like to go and be and spend time and just, I don't know everybody there, but again, it was a space where everyone feels welcomed. And so being in those spaces and then seeing the way that they are treated by the police, by the elected officials, by the campus or the university presidents is, again, appalling. But if you think about it in context of what it means here in this country, right? When we say that you have the right to protest and you have the right to free speech, we have to remember who it is that has that right, because it's not all of us. And we talk about the founding fathers who have written this Constitution to create this, this country, but also remember why they made that Constitution. What were they writing it for and who were they writing it for? It was for rich men, it was for white men, it was for men. And so each group had to fight to sort of be allowed into that space and to have those privileges. And so again, we as a Muslim community are starting to see those layers sort of being peeled back, and I think it's important that we really, again, use this moment to understand what it has been like since the start of this country for our Black brothers and sisters, right? We know the first Muslims in America were from Africa. What it's been like for our LGBTQ brothers and sisters. They as well have been at the, they're the ones who are targeted the most. For our disabled brothers and sisters, they are also the ones who are always targeted, ones especially, struggling with mental health. And so we are now in their shoes and we're seeing what it's like. And so one, we should come together. And like I said, it's all of those marginalized communities that are showing up for us. And it's so beautiful. And so it really is our responsibility to do the same for them. So we do hope that, you think about all your options, that you do, use your right to go and vote in the primary on June 4th, and that we hope that that isn't the end of it, right? That you continue on fighting for our community, for other communities, and using your voice, even on the local level to really try to make change. Thank you.
MashaAllah, such a wealth of knowledge and experience in the room. So as we approach the question and answer portion, you guys could just raise your hand, ask a question. I wanted to probably start with the first question that I had myself that I want to just address to the entire room, and something that I think for sure will be asked. And I want to preface it with, I guess, an experience of my own. So as a pharmacy student, one day I was just walking around in the building, and there was this elderly gentleman who looked to be of Arab descent. And so this was after October 7th, and I was wearing my keffiyeh. And when he saw me, he asked me, he said, "Where are you from?" So I said, "I'm from Palestine. I'm from, my mother's from Gaza." So he looked at me and his entire demeanor changed. And very quickly, he started walking towards me, and in one motion, he wrapped his hands around me. And I was very startled, as you can probably imagine. But then as I'm holding this elderly man in my hands, I began to feel his tears drop onto my neck. And, I held him for, the better part of 3 minutes in my hand. And when he finally broke away, he told me, he said, I'm really sorry. He said, they're finished. They're done for. And for me, at that moment, this was in the weeks following October 7th, I felt my heart was crushed. But for someone to say that to me, it brought to light what a lot of us were feeling at the time. And it was very, very concerning. And so when he said that to me, I said, Ammo, you can't think like that. I said, there's always something to be done, and there's always light at the end of the tunnel. So he said, what is there to be done? What can you do? So I began to explain it to him and whatnot, and I wasn't saying controversial things, I was saying things that I think now a lot of us are actually doing. And when I said that, he started to look around the room, and he was very, very, very scared. And he said, Omar, you can't talk about that stuff here. I could get deported. I don't even have citizenship here. I can't say these things. And I told him, well, listen, I'm a 21-year-old Muslim American. And it is my duty as an American to use my civil rights and to use my ability for free speech and free expression and to protest and to say the things that I believe in. And so I think that's a great starting point for our questions is, for our audience, for people who are students, what is the first step tonight? What can we do tonight to get started? So perhaps, the microphone, yeah.
I would say that one thing for me, as you heard earlier, I have done a lot of community work. It's something that I do separate. I'm a teacher. I teach the 4th grade, but I've always felt really strongly, similarly to Brother Sami. For me, it's always been the quote by Brother Muhammedi, who said, "Service to others is the rent that we pay for our place here on earth." Right, knowing that this is temporary, this life is temporary, and so. It's our responsibility to take care of each other while we're here. And so, that was something I have to, say alhamdulillah, my parents instilled in me. But, that means finding your people, finding your community. And so I think I started a lot of the work that I do because of just doing like a lot of immigration justice work and trying to make sure, my parents came here as immigrants, that those so many people who are coming here as refugees from South America, right, that they are not given the same privileges and rights that we were. And so, feeling that responsibility really heavily of, making sure that we're caring for them. And then, when I went into that one space, I was able to meet really, really phenomenal people, but also find opportunities to do more. Through that, I was able to do, the tenants' rights work, and then through that, I was able to do the mutual aid work, right? COVID hit, and we had so many people who just lost their income, right? If they're day workers, day laborers, it's day to day, and so they just immediately lost everything. And so it was, how do I then reach out to those networks and create these mutual aid organizations? And it really was incredible. So it really starts with finding the one thing that you feel really passionate about, and then, and if it is Gaza, I think, which hopefully it is, that you find those spaces. So whether it's, talking to the students and finding a way to support them, whether it is, joining a Muslim Civic Coalition and finding ways locally that you can make change. But starting with really just one thing, because it can feel overwhelming, and through that you get so many more opportunities.
People, they need to ask questions.
Yeah.
So I think that was spot on. When Martin Luther King was killed, does anybody know what his approval rating was in America? It was about 35%. That means 2/3 of America disapproved of Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King is now the only person that still has a national holiday named after him. So where you are today and the words you speak may put you in a position where you feel like you're in the 1/3 or less. But that does not mean that history will remember you that way. So don't be scared to speak up. Don't be intimidated, and don't feel like the work you've done will not have impact. You may not even see the impact. You may be the one that plants the seeds in the ground, but yet somebody else will enjoy the fruits of that tree. So you have to think in the long term, don't be stuck in the short term. The second thing I'll say is that there is no impact that's too small. Even if you start at your local boards, I think just something small, but you may, it's in these little micro people actually engage. Oh, here we go. That's a lot louder. People actually dialogue. One know each other, and we don't. Other One day she just, comes. I can't get this right. Is this better? She came up to me and she says something that at first I was like, she says, "What is it with you Muslims?" I'm like, uh-oh. This isn't going anywhere good. She said, "You guys are all like so good, right? Like everyone who I've come across has been somebody who's, we're not lying. We're not talking behind somebody's back. We truly want what's best. We stand up for the rights of others. Like in every way that the Prophet ﷺ taught us to be, it's actually exemplary. And insofar as we're able to follow that example, people will notice. And then they start connecting the dots, because if there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of you, the director of the food bank in my town went, "Do you know Dr. Al-Banna?" Yeah, right? Mahmoud Al-Banna. I go, "Yeah, he was my roommate." He goes, "I should have known. Man, he's such a great guy. I should have known you guys were connected." Right? Like you start to develop these types of reputations that has impact. And then people become more sympathetic to the stuff that you're saying. When you just scream it at them at a rally or something like that, that has not that much impact on somebody's heart. But when you're actually friends with them and you sit down and you engage with them, I think that's where you get the impact. So I think engaging in any way, even if it's something small, you have a food bank here, you have so many things that you can have access to. Just pick one of those and make that your center of impact.
Happening to me. When I was doing the Amadou Diallo in the 90s, and we have all those protests